Hi, costuming friends. Welcome to Cocktails and Costuming. I'm Gigi, a sociologist, cultural history buff, and a person who focuses on all things Italian. Today, I'm chatting with Shasta of Sci-Fi Cheer Girl. Welcome, Shasta.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So first question basically is, what are we drinking?
Today we are having a whiskey ginger, and I substitute frozen fruit for ice because ice is boring. I don't need it.
That's smart, though. I'm just drinking wine. I'm drinking a Shiraz from South Africa, I believe. It's pretty good. And the substituting the ice for frozen fruit is smart too, because then you don't get it watered down. So that's nice.
I want all of the flavor and none of the nonsense. Yeah.
Exactly. We're here on that. So tell me what your handles are, your URLs. Where can we find you online?
Okay. I am Sci-Fi Cheer Girl on Instagram and Twitter, although I only use Twitter for like gaming screenshots. The handle came from the kind of two favorite things that I like to do at the time that I created it, which were science fiction, a lot of reading, and cheerleading, which was part of my life for a while. And I'm also on Facebook as Green Linen Shirt, which is a gaming reference. And that's also my blog, greenlinenshirt.com.
Okay. All right. We'll also include all these links in the description box. Question about cheering. So I was hoping that cheering was part of the reason why you had that. Did you see that new show on Netflix, Cheer, about the cheer team in Texas? Did you like it?
I loved it. It was like revisiting an old life. You know, I closed that chapter in my life and they just brought it all back. It was fantastic. Yeah, I lived every moment of it.
I really liked it. I think it gave me some insight into cheering that I never had before. So that's kind of awesome. So we will talk more about cheering later. Tell me about the inspiration behind your Instagram account and your blog.
Okay. I started blogging all my costume stuff back in 2008 as Green Linen Shirt, because that's what all of the Ren Fair people were doing. I was very active, kind of reading Ren Fair forums, and all of them had blogs. And I said, well, you know, I want one too. So every couple of months or so, I'd post whatever I was working on, and you know, my mom would read it, and that would be it. And that, you know, it's still going, so that's cool. And then I started on Instagram a few years ago, just doing wardrobe challenges, so like Disney bounding kind of stuff. And then I started putting up my costuming stuff, and it's kind of exploded now.
Yeah, because your costumes are kind of amazing. So yeah, that's why they exploded. What are the labels that you use for yourself, and how did you acquire them?
I use the term hobby costumer, and the hobby part of that is very important because I get a lot of commission requests, and like family members will always ask me to, you know, make curtains and things, and it's not really something I'm into. I am totally into costuming for fun. I'm totally into sewing and crafting and hot gluing. You know, all that stuff is just for fun. So hobby costumer is me.
Okay. So how long have you been costuming, and how did you get into
it? I started collecting costumes in college 20-ish years ago. But I've been sewing since I was very small. I grew up in a household where my mom, my grandma, my aunts, everybody was sewing, and I learned by watching them and then by reading sewing manuals and just trying out new patterns. I have a lot of patterns. In high school, I had a Shakespeare obsession, which kind of went on again into university. And then that led me to Ren fairs. And then I had some friends who started going to comic book conventions. So I started doing that too. And now I have a home sewing studio and a basement full of costumes. So.
Isn't it funny how that you just acquire things, you just take up so much space.
It's a hoard. There's so much stuff in my house.
Do you have like an area of your house? So I actually have a craft room, but right now I'm in my library. I'm in my front, like my den, with my sewing table, because my craft room is full of stuff. It's full of like bolts of clothing and totes full of things and projects that are kind of laid out that that I'm not working on. So it's like I need even more space than just, you know, a whole entire room for my crafts.
Oh yeah, like I took over the basement. I made my husband take a bunch of stuff to like Goodwill, and you know other thrift stores and things just to get them out of the house. And then I moved all of the stuff that was in my sewing studio down to the basement, like the power tools that I don't want around the fabric, all that sort of stuff. And now the basement is completely full. I had to buy new storage. I had to buy hanging racks to hang up like my gowns, like Ren Fair gowns and things like that. My studio, we converted part of it into a study room for my daughter since she's home. And now I've got fabric on this side. I've got costumes hanging on this side. We're very close in here. I've got like a pile of fabric right here. So
the struggle is real, y'all.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your favorite projects.
Oh man, this gets me in trouble a lot. So my favorite costumes or projects are historical mashups. And I've told people, no fandom is safe from me. I will mash up anything. I've done the Star Wars, Star Trek mashup, which gets me, a fair amount of hate mail. I do a lot of 16th century mashups because we go to the Ren Fair so much, but we also go to comic book conventions. And the only way I can, cross over those costumes is to have something that works for both. Otherwise, I'd never get anything done. I'd have like one costume a year. So my absolute favorite costume is 16th century Batgirl. She came out of a cross between Assassin's Creed 2, which was set in basically in Renaissance Italy. It's a beautiful game. And I said, oh, well, I need that too. Also a book, Marvel 1602, which takes all of the Marvel superheroes back to, just around the time that Queen Elizabeth dies in England. And it's them running around doing superhero things, but, in 16th century clothing. It's a fantastic book. And that hit my sweet spot for costumes. So right now I'm into 18th century, like pretty hard into it. I fell into that hole. And so I worked on a Georgian Storm from the X-Men. I have a 1780s Princess Allura from Voltron. Yeah, mashups are my thing. They're my favorite.
I didn't know about the Marvel 1602. I'm going to have to look that up. That would be interesting to me.
It's extensive. It's very entertaining. And it's the kind of costuming you would expect where they just wear, Peter Parker wears, I think like a red shirt and a pair of blue breeches or something like that. So it's very basic, but I was able to kind of take that to the next level by adding on like the bat symbol and that sort of thing to my Batgirl. So, yeah.
Okay. What drew you to the Karachi portrait? So, because I am like an Italophile completely, that was one of the first things I saw you do. So tell us about what drew you to it. What did you learn while researching it and making it?
So the Karachi portrait. The first time I remember seeing it was at the Walters Museum in Baltimore in 2013. We went to the exhibit. I bought the exhibit book because as soon as I walked, the name of the exhibit was Revealing the African Presence in Renaissance Europe. And I said, oh, this is my 100%. This is all of my interest right here. We're going to go to this. So I dragged my poor husband down. He loves museums, but I think it was a day that we had something else to do. I said, no, we have to go see it before before the exhibit's done. So we went down to the Walters Museum and I saw the painting, bought the book, took it home and said, you know what, I need to do this because before her, I don't remember wanting to do a recreation of any Renaissance, Elizabethan anything. I just wanted to make my 16th century Ren Fair clothes and just, kind of embrace the fantasy. And then I saw this portrait and I saw myself represented in a time period that I was interested in. So kind of took that and ran with it. I was primarily focused on English fashions at the time, so I knew absolutely nothing about Italian styles for any period. I knew that at some point there were the high waist gowns, and I thought those were cool, but it didn't really, you know, I didn't have any patterns or anywhere to start for that. But I was more frustrated that I didn't know anything about the portrait, because I wanted to have something to research from, you know, to research before I got into trying to build this, you know, which is basically just all we can see is the top. So I knew that I was going to need some type of dress, and I was going to need some type of partlet, but I think it's called something else, neck covering. So I jumped into it, kind of looking at, you know, simplicity patterns and checking out Realm of Venus, the website. I went back to all of the bloggers and costumer accounts that I could remember that I had been bookmarking for years, like you, just to figure out what goes into Italian fashions of that time, because that's what I knew about the portrait was. It was an Italian it was done by an Italian artist around 1590s perhaps, and then it had traveled to someone who was not in Italy, and then made it into a private gallery, and then it made it onto the show floor. So that's all I knew. People speculate about her, who this person was, but nobody really knows yet, and I hope that one day they'll be able to figure it out. But she wasn't the artist's original focus. And we're so used to people of color being used as status symbols in that type of portraiture. And I didn't want that for her, especially since that's all we have of this larger painting. So I just started poring over reference materials and trying to determine how I wanted to represent her. And I wanted a silk gown, and I wanted the finest of everything, just to be able to, you know, have a fancy gown from a portrait that represented me and my people. So that's what I got out of it. And I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to wear it outside, not just in my backyard.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
It is absolutely gorgeous. And for someone who you know, may not have had a lot of experience making Italian style dresses or dresses from the Italies, it's spot on. The silhouette is perfect. So
thank you. That was the hardest part. I had no idea. I had no idea how I was going to get it to be so smooth. And I think that's why it took me so long to, you know, really sit down and get it started. But I just said, you know what, we're going to get a petticoat. And I know we had petticoats, and I know we had boning at that period. So I just put as many bones in as possible. And then when I got up to the outer gown, it was again a matter of, okay, if I use like a buckram or some type of material like that, then I can get it really smooth and it'll really shine the way that it does in the painting. So I'm glad that came across.
Yes, it did. It did. Good job. And of course, you know, I can't overstate the fact that when you see yourself represented in art, it touches you in a different way, especially when you are missing from the picture, even though you know, like cognitively, you know that people like you existed. When there's such an absence of you in the material culture of the time and in the, you know, the art culture of the time, when you actually do see it, you hold on to it. So that is a portrait that I've actually had, I know, bookmarked for a long time, even though I don't really portray that late into the century. It's always been one that I love. So thank you for bringing it to life for me.
I'm here to help. What
is something we wouldn't guess about you?
Oh man, so here it comes. Okay, so I did mention, you know, that the cheer and sci-fi cheer girl is about cheerleading, because for some reason people seem to think it's because I'm a cheery person, and I'm not saying that I'm not a cheery person, but that's not where that comes from. I was a competitive cheerleader for around 20 years, and just like in that show, every moment of my life was dedicated to some aspect of cheerleading. So when I started, I was a scholastic cheerleader. So I did the traditional sideline cheering, you know, in school. I did that for grade school, high school, and college. But then after I was already an adult and I wasn't cheering for a college team, I was on a competitive traveling team. And it's as serious as they, you know, depict in that show. In addition to that, I was a part-time coach, choreographer, I was a judge, I was a music engineer, I was a fitness director, I was a tumbling coach. Like, this was my entire life, kind of before and then slightly into the beginning of me being so heavy into costuming. I even ran private summer camps for a while. And so when I tell people, oh, I was a cheerleader, they don't really know what that means. And it was intense. But at some point I had to get away from the thing that was like physically destroying my body and like pick costuming, which I did. And I'm glad I did, because, you know, I don't have knees anymore. So yeah.
So fun. Watching the show Cheer, like before I watched that, I really had no, like you said, people don't understand what it means. I probably still don't really understand what it means, but I have more of an idea by watching the things that these athletes went through to practice their sport.
It's crazy.
You know, you say tumbling coach and you did choreography. It's just all of those, you know, components of the documentary that they did were kind of amazing to watch. But so when I look at, I think her name was Gabby Butler.
Yeah.
You know, and the work that she had to do behind the scenes to promote herself, and the travel and the advertising, and then the physical demands on her body. That's what I thought for myself. I thought, man, what about her knees? Like, she only has like a certain amount of time before, right? That it's not going to be feasible to do this. So she's got to milk every moment of this.
Yep. And kids start when they're, you know, as I think they mentioned in the show, kids start as soon as they can walk. My mom was a cheerleader and a cheerleading coach. So when I was born, I was on the sidelines with her as she was coaching her kids, because she coached a high school team. And it wasn't crazy in the, when was that? The 80s. It wasn't crazy in the 80s, but then come to find out, yeah, it was kind of crazy in the 80s. They just didn't apply certain like circus tricks to cheerleading the way that they do now, because we're building, you know, 3 high pyramids and things, and that's super dangerous. And you have to have safety certifications, and you have to have tumbling certifications, because we want to keep kids safe. But then the adults, you know, we don't care. We'll throw ourselves around. No big. So, yeah.
Man. Okay. Yeah, I would not have guessed that. So thank you for sharing.
No problem.
Who would you have fangirled over, or who have you fangirled over?
Okay, so I have a couple of answers for this. So first off, I am just impressed by anyone at like Ren Fair street performers. When they look at me, which they're supposed to do, like that's what they're paid to do, I get excited. I just love people, even though I'm an introvert, but I'm so much of an introvert and I'm very shy. I swear I am. I just get super excited, and, you know, I like a puppy, I'm always wagging my tail like, oh my goodness, they're looking at me. That's the first answer. So anybody that I've ever met ever, Instagram feed, you know, you, Gigi, just, I love people, but only when they're like outside of my house. Celebrity wise, and this one comes up every once in a while because I am a Star Trek fan. I have like Star Trek tattoos. It's a little ridiculous. Nichelle Nichols, I met her at a convention a few years ago, and I burst into tears when she said that my costume was cool. So I have fangirled over a person in their face, and I'm still like, oh, why couldn't I hold it together for 5 minutes? But on a more realistic and everyday sort of way, I would love to not even meet, just kind of sit in the same room and hear her speak. Harlie de Roches from the SCA. I would probably have to be like sedated in the corner, because she has recently talked on the diversity, equity, and inclusion Facebook.
Did you see that interview?
I did. I was there for most of it, and then I had to leave for Dungeons and Dragons like in the last 5 minutes. It's like, you guys are killing me. But I watched the whole thing. I was in tears in my living room watching this, because these are the same types of experiences that I've been through. And I only, you know, I have a few friends, you know, who have been through those experiences, and we talk about it all the time. We play the, you know, count the people game, you know where your exits are at all times, that sort of thing. But hearing someone else who is, you know, at the level of what you guys do, it's exactly what I needed. Like there are more of us out there and we are all, it's not just me feeling like I'm a little crazy, you know, the way that some people choose to talk to me at events. So I would love to meet her, just kind of sit in the corner and just listen to her talk. And, you know, I already pre-ordered the typical tutor like the day it got announced. So I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. So I will say, I also think she's fabulous. And the things that you just said kind of touched me because I look at you that way. You know, to know that there are other Black girls out there like me who like costuming or who like history, but also who understand what it is to be a Black woman doing those things and kind of automatically have a safe space to talk to you about it and know that I won't have to explain or over explain, and that you'll believe me when I say what I've experienced.
Yep.
It's like a priceless thing.
It is. It is. I'm so happy to have you now.
Yeah. So, and part of the reason I wanted to do these interviews was not only did I want everyone else to like be able to see on YouTube costumers of color and living historians of color, but I also wanted to meet you guys. So this is my way of saying, as an introvert that masquerades as an extrovert sometimes, but is truly an introvert, like you said, you know, my way of coming out from behind the history books and actually meeting you.
Yep. Excited.
What are your goals for the future?
More historical mashups. that is my goal. I have.
We'll take it.
Oh yeah, I have a list my arm long of just a lot of comic book stuff, again because comic books are the easiest for me to say, oh, I read this comic back when I was little, I think it's time to do this costume, but I'm going to do it my way. So I'm just going to keep throwing that at the internet and see how they like it or not. I also want to downsize my costume fabric hoard that I've got going on here. Yeah. It's luckily my kid is now old enough that she can kind of start fitting into some things from when I was, you know, smaller, you know, cheerleading small. So I don't have to throw away or give away or sell everything. But yeah, I want like a lot of the fabrics that I bought 20 years ago, they don't match my current interests, or they're, you know, completely made of plastic and I'm not going to wear that to an all-day event in the summer. So yeah, those are my two goals, to keep up my mashups and to just kind of cull this collection I've got, because I need more space to make more.
Yes, always more. I have a list of more projects that I want to do, even though I haven't completed all my current or past projects.
Oh yeah, the one sitting on the table, like I'm backstitching an English gown for 18th century, and it's probably the only mashup I have. It's not a mashup, it's just a regular English gown. It's very exciting for me. But underneath of that is the medieval Princess Zelda that I've been working on for like 6 months. So
don't you feel like those projects judge you? Like I know that they don't have eyes, but I feel like they're looking at me and judging me for not finishing them.
Yep, they want to know why I keep buying more fabric and not finishing the hem. And I have 3 dress forms and they're all busy. So
hems are overrated.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
I will say that hemming is my least favorite part. And I'm not really huge into sewing. Like I'm actually just beginning to sew for myself instead of commission and work with someone who actually knows what they're doing, because I chose a time period where things were very complicated and I did not know how to sew at all when I joined the STA. So it was like, I can't just jump into 15th century Italian, not going from not ever sewing, even
Sure you can.
So now that I am starting to, it gives me even more like appreciation for the art itself. But all the little steps, like once it gets to the hem, I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna wear it. So.
And it takes forever. I've seen these gowns that you guys are wearing, and there's so much fabric, and tiny, tiny hem stitches I'm not a fan of hems either, but I'm working.
It's better to hand sew them.
Yeah, which it's the worst, but that's what I'll be working on later. So I'm going to get used to it.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
What advice would you have for anyone who loves costumes and wants to get into this community?
Most important, and I should have taken my own advice here, is to allow yourself to make mistakes, because that's how we learn. You don't want little things like construction mistakes, like, for example, your hem's not quite right. You don't want to let that sort of thing stop you from showing up at an event. It's not worth it. If you are a historical costumer, take a look at museum photos of extant gowns. They're a hot mess. There's piecing everywhere. The stitches are not symmetrical. You don't have to count the number of stitches per inch. You just need to get something on your body so that you can go to an event and try to get some fun out of it. And then after that, you can learn. Once you're in it, you've got your new costuming friends like me. We're going to help you get to where you want to be. And there's also no pressure. Don't put that pressure on yourself. I see it a lot with cosplayers too, and I do separate the two because of the type of events that we usually go to. I have seen and made so much armor that has battle damage in it. I'm surprised they stay on. And battle damage for armor building, because we're working with foam and thermoplastics, is usually somewhere I've overheated it and it's not smooth anymore, or somewhere I've accidentally dropped my razor blade or utility knife, and so there's now a dent in my armor, and all I can do is paint over it and, you know, only photograph on the good side. So just make the oh, it's bad. Just make those mistakes and just acknowledge, okay, if something goes wrong, as long as, you know, the piece doesn't fall off of you, you know, we're going to be here to help out. It'll be fine. You learn from your mistake. You know, learn to use more hot glue next time. It's not a big deal. So
okay, I will also take that advice, because I have, you guys can't see it, but right over here are 3 bolts of fabric that just came from Joann's, their Black Friday sale. Ooh. And patterns from Laughing Moon, because I want to do a early Regency, like 1798 to 1799 type dress. You know, and I have to start with the shift and then do the petticoat and then the dress. And it is intimidating. I want to get everything right. Like I had a simplicity pattern, but then I was like, no, let me get Laughing Moon because they're probably more historically accurate. And I worked myself up until like almost gridlock. Like I didn't want to actually start because I was like, I'm so afraid of making a mistake. This is my first Regency dress, right? So I'm going to take your advice and Noelle's advice and just do the thing.
Just do the thing. Make
and if I mess up, then I mess up.
You're going to make 10 more gowns anyway.
I know, right? It's not going to just be this one. So I'm going to start. Yeah. Thank you for giving us that advice. So I think I'm not at the end of my drink.
I know, right?
But we are at the end of our show. Please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell as well so you can be notified when we drop new episodes. If you like the show, also hit the thumbs up. Show Shasta some love in the comments below, and also follow her on social media. My social media handles are also below in the description box. Thank you for being here with us, Shasta, and sharing a little bit of yourself with the internet today. And to all of you who are watching, stay safe out there and be excellent to each other. Bye.